young Turks who were genocidaires who killed 1 million Armenians.
I'm going to try and wrestle things back. Cenk, let me ask you a question. You mentioned genocide there. What Hamas is actually in its charter dedicated to doing is the purest personification of genocide. Well, it is. They want to see the eradication of Israel, and they proved on October the 7th they will kill as many Jews as they can possibly get their hands on. So that is pure genocide. What Israel is doing in return, I don't think meets the category of genocide. Right, because they don't want to get rid of every Palestinian. They don't want to kill every Palestinian.
No,
they want to kill every Hamas terrorist. Now,
it only takes mere seconds to introduce a sentence, to millions of people, mind you, that contains numerous presuppositions that are faulty. Setting aside the fact that Hamas rarely invokes the Charter, according to a 2009 report from the United States Institute of Peace, a federal institution, which read, "The Charter itself contains statements that reflect a lack of hostility toward Jews on the basis of religion. For example, as Article 31 states, under Islam, the followers of the three religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, may coexist peacefully and safely. Whether or not one accepts this statement as true, it is incompatible with claims of a religious obligation to kill Jews." Regardless, the report also states that Hamas has, in practice, moved well beyond its charter. Hamas has been carefully and consciously adjusting its political program for years and has sent repeated signals that it may be ready to begin a process of coexisting with Israel. Further, Hamas leader Khaled Meshal urged outsiders to ignore the Hamas charter. In 2017, Hamas revised its charter altogether. According to the Rand Corporation, the major defense think tank, Hamas dropped the language explicitly calling for Israel's destruction, which suggests an effort by Hamas to portray itself as more of an Islamic national liberation movement. Setting aside the fact that Hamas took hostages, evidently not killing every Jew that they could get their hands on, and that some of the dead were reportedly killed by the Israeli military, according to an article from the Israeli Yediot Ahronoth, after the pilots realized that it was very difficult to distinguish between terrorists and Israeli soldiers or civilians, the decision was made that the first objective of the fighter helicopters is to stop the deluge of terrorists. 28 fighter helicopters shot over the course of the day all of the ammunition in their bellies. We are talking about hundreds of 30mm cannon mortars and Hellfire missiles. The frequency of fire at the thousands of terrorists was enormous at the start, and only at a certain point did the pilots begin to slow their attacks and carefully choose the targets. According to the Air Force, in the first 4 hours from the start of the battles, helicopters and fighter craft attacked about 300 targets, most in Israeli territory.
They explain in these articles that what they saw at the beginning of this air operation was complete chaos. And in fact, here reported by Haaretz, a journalist on X, who says that this 48-year-old man that we see in this picture was killed by the IDF after being mistakenly identified as a terrorist.
Setting all that aside, Pierce shows a fundamental lack of understanding of what genocide is. Perhaps this is an opportunity for others to learn as well.
Embrace them and believe them. You must remember what Amalek has done to you, says our Holy Bible, and we do remember and we are fighting.
Making the case that Israel is committing genocide is quite simple. As explained by Craig McIver, who made headlines for resigning from the United Nations. McIver was the director of the New York office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights.
Usually the most difficult part of proving genocide is intent. In this case, the intent by Israeli leaders has been so explicitly stated and publicly stated by the Prime Minister, by the President, by senior cabinet ministers, by military leaders, that is an easy case to make. It's on the public record.
The day of the October 7th Hamas attack, Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the people of Israel.
כינסתי את ראשי מערכת הביטחון, הנחיתי קודם כל לטהר את היישובים מהמחבלים שחדרו פנימה. הפעולה הזאת מתבצעת בשעות הללו. האויב ישלם מחיר שהוא לא ידע כמותו.
Later that day, Israeli Energy Minister Israel Katz announced that Israel would shut off all electricity to Gaza, followed by, "What was will not be." We'll remember that it was on October 9th when Defense Minister Yoav Gallant announced,
"No food, no water, no gas, it's all closed. We're fighting animals and are acting accordingly."
Just days later, he told troops, Of course, we remembered that October 10th, IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari revealed that Israel had begun dropping hundreds of tons of bombs and that the emphasis is on damage and not accuracy. Later that day, Major General Ghassan Alian, head of the Coordinator of Government Activities in the Territories, explained,
سكان غزة بدل ما يصدمهم الإشي عم بيحتفلوا مع هيك وحوش بشرية رايحين نتعامل كيف لازم مش راح يكون في عندكم كهرباء ولا مي بس دمار بدكم جهنم راح تحصلوا على جهنم.
And Reservist General Giora Island wrote an article declaring that Gaza will become a place where no human being can exist. When asked about the ensuing humanitarian situation in Gaza, Israel's President Isaac Herzog stated,
"It's an entire nation out there that is responsible."
I sent these remarks to genocide scholar Martin Shaw of the University of Sussex, who said the comment shows a genocidal mentality, and genocide scholar Mark Levine of the University of Southampton, who suggested that the comment was the Israeli government alibi for treating everybody in Gaza as if they are Hamas. Mass murder is thereby legitimated. Herzog was pressed about the comment further.
You seem to hold the people of Gaza, the civilians of Gaza, responsible. That makes them legitimate targets.
No, I didn't say that.
Yoav Gallant has been slightly more unapologetic. A month later, amid growing tensions with Lebanon, he revealed,
"It is the citizens of Lebanon that will pay the price of these kinds of mistakes. What we are doing in Gaza, we can do in Beirut."
It's fair to say that the Israeli officials have been mouthy. It's hard to explain just how significant comments like these are. In the trial judgment for the case against Jean-Paul Akiyezu during the Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, the chamber considers that intent is a mental factor which is difficult, even impossible to determine. This is the reason why, in the absence of a confession from the accused, his intent can be inferred from a certain number of presumptions of fact. Factors such as the scale of atrocities committed, or furthermore deliberately and systematically targeting victims on account of their membership of a particular group, can enable the chamber to infer the genocidal intent of a particular act. So there's a case to be made that even absent these statements, we could infer genocidal intent. Continuing with the Akiyezu trial judgment, in a section regarding one of the Genocide Convention's core tenets, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, which the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda found should be construed as the methods of destruction by which the perpetrator does not immediately kill the members of the group, but which ultimately seek their physical destruction. The chamber is of the opinion that the means of deliberate inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part include, inter alia, subjecting a group of people to a subsistence diet, systematic expulsion from homes, and the reduction of essential medical services below minimum requirement. Now, it should be known, before October 7th, Gazans were already on a subsistence diet. In 2012, Amira Haas wrote for Haaretz an article confirming the existence of a so-called Red Lines document, drafted by Ehud Olmert's cabinet in 2008, shortly after the beginning of the ongoing blockade. The Red Lines document calculates the minimum number of calories needed by every age and gender group in Gaza, then uses this to determine the quantity of staple foods that must be allowed into the strip every day, as well as the number of trucks needed to carry this quantity. On average, the minimum worked out to 2,279 calories per person per day. From this, they reduced the quantity of fruits and vegetables, milk, and meat and poultry. Echoing what attorney Dov Weissglass, a senior advisor to Olmert, said in 2006, the idea is to put the Palestinians on a diet, but not to make them die of hunger. Amira Haas continues, the drafters of the Red Lines document noted that the quantity of fruit and vegetables Gaza could produce for itself was expected to decline from 1,000 tons a day to 500 within a few months due to the Israeli ban on bringing in seeds, as well as the ban on exporting produce. They predicted a similar fate for the poultry industry, but they didn't propose any solution for this decline. Even with this generous allotment of calories, then Gaza director for the UN Relief and Works Agency, Robert Turner, complained, food imports consistently fell below the red lines. This trend continued. Before October 7th, 63% of the population was considered food insecure, according to the World Health Organization. This was with 500 trucks entering Gaza per day. Harvard economist Sarah Roy, considered the foremost expert on Gaza's economy, wrote in a recent editorial, there is a desperate need for basic resources in Gaza, including food. Despite this, the first aid convoys weren't allowed into Gaza until October 21st. According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, By November 7th, a total of 650 trucks had entered Gaza, or 36 trucks per day. Essential items such as rice, legumes, and vegetable oil have almost disappeared in the market. Wheat flour, eggs, and dairy products are no longer available in shops across Gaza. And by November 7th, the amount of drinking water entering Gaza could only serve 4% of the population. Not surprisingly, there have been a growing number of reports indicating that people are drinking seawater and contaminated water from agricultural wells. Roy concludes that Gaza is approaching a state of total collapse, and this collapse is undeniably one of choice. According to OCHA, or the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, on November 4th and 5th, 7 water facilities across the Gaza Strip were directly hit and sustained major damage, including 3 sewage pipelines in Gaza City, 2 water reservoirs in Gaza City, Rafah, and Jabalia refugee camp, and 2 water wells in Rafah. Before October 7th, when 97% of water was unfit for human consumption, since then, there is 92% less water consumption. Further, the only mill in Gaza able to grind wheat is not working, due to a lack of electricity and fuel. 11 bakeries have been hit and destroyed since October 7th. In terms of systematic expulsion from homes, on October 13th, Israel ordered residents north of Wadi Gaza, a river and wetland, numbering 1.1 million people to evacuate to the south of the Strip. After which Michael Schmidt, a scholar of the Lieber Institute at West Point Military Academy, opined, "I struggle to see how warnings that Gaza City is about to be attacked and civilians should leave can be characterized as anything other than actions designed to minimize loss of life and injury," which spurred a rebuttal from Yusuf Syed Khan, a senior lawyer at Global Rights Compliance, who wrote, "Giving effect to an order to displace through acts of coercion in such a context might include the IDF's repeatedly using the word must." Indeed, the alternative to leaving was declared in no uncertain terms by Defense Minister Yoav Gallant.
Those who want to save their life, please go south.
And by IDF leaflets and cell phone audio messages. Your presence north of Wadi Gaza puts your life in danger. Whoever chooses not to leave North Gaza to the south of Wadi Gaza might be identified as an accomplice in a terrorist organization. And the destruction of homes and property ensured that there's nowhere for them to go back to. According to the UN, as of November 8th, at least 45% of homes in Gaza, not North Gaza, but all of Gaza, are either damaged or completely destroyed. In the trial judgment for Mladen Neledilic and Vinko Martinovic, the Criminal Tribunal for Yugoslavia interpreted that the deliberate destruction of homes was indicative of intent to forcibly displace civilians. When a genuine evacuation takes place, there is an obligation to bring the population back when the hostilities have ended. No attempts to return them were made. In fact, most of their houses were torched. With regard to bringing the population back, in the words of Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs Eli Cohen, at the end of this war, not only will Hamas no longer be in Gaza, but the territory of Gaza will also decrease, as described by the Criminal Tribunal for Yugoslavia in the appeal judgment for Milomir Stakic. Although displacement for humanitarian reasons is justifiable in certain situations, the appeals chamber agrees with the prosecution that it is not justifiable where the humanitarian crisis that caused the displacement is itself the result of the accused's own unlawful activity. With regard to Bosnian Muslims, the displacement was involuntary, and that, to the extent it had a humanitarian purpose, this was only because of a humanitarian crisis that the appellant himself had deliberately caused. Finally, we have the reduction of essential medical services below minimum requirement. Well, Human Rights Watch on November 14th called for Israel to be investigated for war crimes. The Israeli military's repeated, apparently unlawful attacks on medical facilities, personnel, and transport are further destroying Gaza's healthcare system and should be investigated as war crimes. Hospitals have run out of medicine and basic equipment, and doctors told Human Rights Watch that they were forced to operate without anesthesia and to use vinegar as an antiseptic. Indeed, a doctor at Al-Aqsa Hospital told Human Rights Watch there is a huge shortage of medicines. No electricity, no diesel, no solar, no water to drink or to use. Human Rights Watch reminds us that the International Criminal Court's Rome Statute prohibits as a war crime intentionally directing attacks against medical units and transport. In a staggering example, the International Eye Hospital in Gaza City was hit 2 different times on 2 different days by what Human Rights Watch described as a large airdropped munition. The hospital posted on Facebook that the International Eye Hospital no longer exists. It has been completely destroyed. The Turkish-Palestinian Friendship Hospital, which housed the only specialized cancer treatment center in all of Gaza, was hit 2 nights in a row. The hospital shut down on November 1st because of the airstrikes and lack of fuel. Indeed, the WHO has reported on November 12th that premature and newborn babies on life support are reportedly dying due to power, oxygen, and water cuts at Al-Shifa Hospital. For those of you that don't know, Al-Shifa is the largest hospital in all of the Gaza Strip. Staff across a number of hospitals are reporting lack of fuel, water, and basic medical supplies, putting the lives of all patients at immediate risk. More than half of the hospitals in the Gaza Strip are closed. Those still functioning are under massive strain and can only provide very limited emergency services, life-saving surgery, and intensive care services. The WHO had also warned on November 8th that the current disease trends are very concerning. They report that before October 7th, reports of diarrhea were steady at 2,000 cases a month. Now, since mid-October 2023, over 33,000 cases of diarrhea have been reported. Over half of these are among children under age 5. There's also scabies and lice, chickenpox, skin rash, and upper respiratory infections. Lack of medicines for treating communicable diseases further increase the risk of accelerated disease spread.